Can you hear me? This is a test. Taking over broadcast. This information has to get out. Launch Counter-Strike. Insurgent. Presentation. This is important. This is something to pay attention to. This has the opportunity and the ability to save you, to save our country, to save humanity. This matters. We are going to look at media literacy, because today it's not enough to simply just watch TV. We need to pay attention. Because, sadly, if you can be controlled, you will be controlled. As a teenager, you begin to think that sometimes you just get to watch things by like a child. But now, as you're growing older, you have a responsibility to understand, to be enlightened, to know. We don't just shoot for 14-year-olds, we own them. This quote not only highlights how important it is to pay attention, but it highlights that idea of control. This quote sounds like it should come from a futuristic world, one where everyone is controlled, one where people don't think for themselves. But unfortunately, this comes from the 20th century. Since 2000, this quote has been in my brain. It is something I have heard. And guess where it comes from? Mr. Bob Pittman, the founder of MTV. He understood that teenagers will listen to anything that someone says. Don't be that teenager. As we go through and look critically at all types of media, whether it be on a billboard, a commercial on TV, your cell phone or a computer, we have these 5 core concepts to remember. These core concepts lead us to ask 5 key questions about the messages we are understanding and receiving. The first core concept is all media messages are constructed. This is core concept number 1. Core concept number 2. Media messages are constructed using a creative language with its own rules. Core concept number 3 is different people experience the same media message differently. Number 4, media messages have embedded values and points of view. Number 5, most media messages are created to gain profit and or power. As we look at these core concepts, each one of them leads us to ask a question about the information that we consume. Do not ignore these 5 questions. Pay attention to them. You may be surprised at what you find out. The 5 key questions to media literacy that line up with those core concepts. Question number 1 has to do with authorship. The question we ask when we're talking about the messages we receive. Who created this message? Someone is behind the creation, and we have to identify it. When it comes to political campaigns and presidential campaigns and commercials, a lot of times the authorship is clear because at the end of the commercial you hear something along the lines of paid for by the Americans for prosperity and the foundation of liberty, or something along those lines, and that is who created that message. Sometimes it's as simple as identifying a company or a corporation. However, this is not always easy, and sometimes it takes a little research. Question number 2 deals with format and techniques. We always have to think about this question: what creative techniques are used to attract my attention? This is how media messages appeal to us. And you may recognize that word appeal from when we talked about the rhetorical appeals of ethos, pathos, and logos. You know that if the song from Sarah McLachlan comes on in the arms of the angel, that commercial may make you sad. That is a creative technique using emotions and appealing to your emotions to attract attention. Number 2 is, how do they creatively attract you? Question 3 is all about audience. How might different people understand this message differently? We are all unique individuals. No matter where you come from, you are brought up with a certain set of beliefs, value systems that you have learned from schools and parents and other adults in your life. These value systems vary based on where you live and how you were raised. Someone from the Bronx in New York City is going to have a much different perspective and understand messages differently than someone who grows up in the Hamptons. Orange County versus Littleton, Colorado. Different people understand messages differently. Question 4 has to deal with content. What values, lifestyles, and points of view are represented in or oftentimes omitted from a message? This is where we see things like, does a commercial portray only one subset of person, a clique, a group? Sometimes with commercials, we see that the commercials are actually portraying messages that perpetuate or continue on gender stereotypes, racial stereotypes. These stereotypes that sometimes we just think are always true, and that is wrong. We need to understand that these lifestyles and points of view are usually of value, and you should hear from everything. The last question you should ask yourself has to do with purpose. And why is that message being sent? So many times that message being sent has to deal with profit or power, sales and influence. This is where we have to understand why we consume the information and what impact it has on us. These 5 questions are important. These 5 questions will lead you to an understanding of the world around you. If, as you consume media in any form, you consider these questions, you will be better off than most people in the world. Everyone says that teenagers need to learn how to be critical thinkers, but no one ever really teaches them. This is a step to become a clear, free-thinking individual. This is important. This is your job. This can save humanity. They have found my hideout. Listen. Do not forget the message. Pay attention. Do not forget that message. It is our only hope. It is our only hope.